I was never one for horseback riding. As a girl, I'd always thought horses were beautiful, but distant, too large, too powerful, too unpredictable to ever truly trust. My parents had taken me to a ranch once when I was 10, but all I'd done was feed an old mare a handful of hay while standing safely behind a fence. Riding had never been on my list of passions, until Blaze. He wasn't just any horse. He was a stallion with a presence that filled the entire stable yard. His coat was the deep, burnished chestnut of autumn leaves after rain, gleaming like polished copper in the sunlight. His mane, thick and dark, rippled when the wind caught it. But it was his eyes that caught me first, dark, intelligent, and almost human in their depth. They were the kind of eyes that didn't just look at you, they looked into you, pulling out things you didn't even know you'd been hiding. The first time I saw him, he was pacing in his paddock, tossing his head in irritation as if the fence was an insult. The stable owner, Marianne, had noticed me watching and laughed. "That's Blaze," she said. "Beautiful, isn't he? But don't let him fool you. He's got a temper and he knows it." I should have kept my distance. I should have admired him from afar and walked away. But something about him made me step closer. It started innocently. I would stop by the stables after work, telling myself it was just to get some fresh air before going home. I'd bring Blaze an apple, brushing his mane while he nuzzled my palm. The more time I spent with him, the more I noticed the small things. The way his ears flicked when I spoke, the low, vibrating sound he made when he was relaxed, the heat radiating off his body when I stood close. I didn't think much of it at first. Mark, my husband, did. "You're at the stables more than you're home lately," he said one evening, his voice deliberately casual as he opened a beer. "Should I be jealous of a horse?" I'd laughed then, rolling my eyes. "Don't be ridiculous. It's just something to do. You're working late most nights, and I like being outside. That's all." But even as I said it, part of me knew that wasn't all. There was something about Blaze, his wildness, his strength, that spoke to a restless part of me. One quiet afternoon, the golden sunlight spilling across the stable yard, I found myself alone with him. The air smelled faintly of hay and leather, the rhythmic creak of his stall door blending with the muffled thud of his hooves shifting on the straw. I brushed his mane slowly, each stroke smoothing more than just his hair. It smoothed the static in my mind. I felt a strange mix of peace and exhilaration, like the world had narrowed down to just the sound of his breathing and the weight of the brush in my hand. "Hey, boy," I whispered, my voice barely carrying. His ear twitched toward me. His eyes met mine, deep and knowing. It wasn't just affection, it was connection. I felt seen in a way I couldn't quite explain. I wasn't just caring for a horse. I was tending to a hunger I hadn't named. That day, Marianne wasn't around, and no one else seemed to be in the stables. Blaze was restless, pawing at the straw as though daring me to do something. I don't know why I did it, but I saddled him up. The moment I climbed onto his back, I felt the difference between him and the docile horses I'd ridden in lessons. He was alive under me, every muscle taut, waiting for my cue. When I gave it, we shot out of the yard like an arrow. The wind whipped against my face, cold and sharp, pulling laughter from my lips. Blaze moved with a power that was almost intoxicating, the ground thundering beneath us. I could feel every movement of his body, the heat, the strength, the unrestrained freedom. I had never felt so untethered, so completely in the moment. We rode until the world was just color and wind and heartbeats. When I finally guided him back toward the stables, my pulse was still racing. I dismounted, still breathless, and turned to lead him into his stall, only to see Mark standing there. He leaned against the wooden post, his expression unreadable, but I could see the storm behind his eyes. "What's going on, Emily?" he asked, quietly. His voice wasn't sharp, but the weight of it pressed against my chest. I froze, one hand still resting on Blaze's reins. "What do you mean?" "You know exactly what I mean." He took a step closer, his gaze flicking from me to the stallion. "You've been gone from me, even when you're home." Back at the house, the air was heavy. Mark didn't raise his voice. He rarely did, but there was an edge to him I couldn't ignore. He told me how he'd been feeling shut out, how I'd stopped reaching for him in bed, how my eyes seemed far away even when we were together. I don't care if it's a horse or a hobby or whatever else, he said, his jaw tight. Something's taken you from me, and I don't know if I can get you back. The truth hurt. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was imagining things, but deep down, I knew he was right. It wasn't romance, not in the way most people would think. But it wasn't innocent either. I had been feeding something inside me, an ache for connection, for freedom, that I should have been sharing with him. That night, Mark didn't touch me. I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying the look in his eyes at the stables. I thought about the way Blaze had felt beneath me, the power, the exhilaration, and the way Mark's touch used to feel before the distance had crept in. And I realized something awful. I had let the horse become my substitute for what I was missing in my marriage. Not physically, but emotionally. I had poured my attention, my energy, my passion into Blaze because it was easier than confronting the cracks forming between me and my husband. The next afternoon, I went back to the stables. Blaze greeted me with a low whinny, tossing his head as though expecting another ride. But I just stood there, running my hand along his neck. His skin was warm beneath his coat, the muscles shifting under my touch. It was still there, that pull, that dangerous allure of wildness. But now it felt different. "Not today, boy," I whispered. He flicked his ear and snorted, clearly unimpressed with my decision. At home, I found Mark in the kitchen, leaning over the counter with a mug of coffee. He looked tired, more than tired, worn down. "Hey," I said softly. He glanced up, guarded. "Hey." I crossed the room, the space between us suddenly feeling like miles. "You're right, I've been somewhere else. With Blaze, with the stables, and I didn't even realize how much I'd pulled away from you." His eyes searched mine, wary. "So what now?" I reached for his hand, and after a pause, he let me take it. "Now, I come home. Really come home. We didn't fix everything that night. Relationships don't work like that. But we talked, really talked, for the first time in weeks. Later, when he touched me, it was slow, tentative, almost like a first kiss all over again. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't lost everything. Not yet. Blaze would always be a memory of freedom, of escape, of temptation. But he would also be a reminder that I couldn't chase wildness without risking what I loved most, and I wasn't ready to lose Mark.